intro. Welcome to Talks at Google. Today it is my pleasure to welcome Hugh Jackman, Taron Egerton, and Dexter Fletcher for Eddie the Eagle. Thank you all for being here.
Pleasure.
Thank you.
So can you tell us a little bit about the story of Eddie Edwards?
Yeah, lead this one.
Yeah, go.
I've forgotten.
Bink. Eddie Edwards was a British ski jumper back in 1988 who managed to get himself to the 1988 Calgary Olympics. And he was profoundly untalented when it came to ski jumping, but he was full of lots of ambition, and he always had a lifelong dream to be at the Olympics, and he got himself there. So that's kind of loosely the story.
Anyone here old enough to remember Eddie Edwards? Eddie, yeah, sorry.
Someone went, I mean, oh,
There's a few of us.
Be proud, guys.
There's a few.
So Taron, you play Eddie in the film.
yes.
It was this great kind of character physical transformation for you. What did you have any sort of ritual aside from maybe carbs to prepare?
You noticed.
You're a character actor. You had to get into it.
Very dedicated.
That's very dedicated to pastry. Yes, there was that. And also he was such a kind of characterful looking guy. He had this very prominent underbite and a deep sonorous voice, as I'm noticing with this little mic. Yeah, and he had a ginger moustache, ginger hair, wore kind of Coke bottle glasses. It was just a great fun opportunity to try something wildly different, really. Yeah.
Speaking of wildly different, so Hugh, your character is fictional.
Yeah.
Did you find it sort of liberating in having more room to play, or was it a little intimidating in having to sort of create this character who fits into this narrative that people are familiar with?
It's certainly easier creating a character when you have someone like Eddie Edwards, who I remember, and certainly everyone in England knows, at least visually, but they remember his antics. It makes it much harder. Not to mention for Taron, he watched the movie for the first time with the real guy, Eddie Edwards, and all his family and friends. Now that is the kind of pressure that...
No pressure.
Yeah.
That was fun.
Easy breezy.
And I played the fictional coach who has been an old sort of ski jumper who's now an alcoholic. So I did a lot of research for that.
You were also a character actor in this.
Yes. I don't know if anyone knows Ginger Baker or has seen that documentary, Beware Ginger Baker.
The drummer?
The drummer, yeah. So I based him on Ginger Baker, who to me was this kind of the epitome of rock and roll. By the way, you should see this documentary, Beware Ginger Baker. He was a very, very famous drummer, known to be the greatest rock and roll drummer of all time. But when he wasn't drumming, he was like basically almost killing himself in some way, shape or form. And if he hadn't have found drumming when he was 14, he would have been in jail by the time he was 15. And so he was pure rock and roll, and that's who I kind of based this character on.
So Dexter, I'd love to know, how did this film get made? Because it'd been in development or there'd been interest for a while, and you guys got it done.
Yeah, exactly. Well, we have a great producer by the name of Matthew Vaughan, who's also a great film director in his own right that Taron's worked with on Kingsman. He directed Kingsman, produced that as well, and he's an old friend of mine, and he kind of dug out the script. It had been sitting around for a long time, but it takes someone like Matthew Vaughan, who's a man of vision, who dug out the script and said, hey, look, here's something really interesting for Taron and you to start tackling. And I've been speaking to Hugh Jackman. I was like, right, okay, this already sounds good. So then we got hold of the script, and that was about two years ago. So it was really about 2 years ago when things really started to happen in earnest. And like any film, it's a certain amount of alchemy is involved, and the right things have to come together in order to create that magic moment. And this just happens to be one of those magic moments. Hello, everybody. So it's just things have to sort of all come together, and stars have to align, and we will have a good experience.
Hugh Jackman has to be free.
That's really what it came down to.
Got it. Done.
We've waited for Hugh Jackman for 15 years. Yeah. Suddenly, you got a 6-week window. We grabbed it.
Worked out well. So speaking of magic moments, I feel like the 88 Olympics were just this sort of, it was Eddie's story. It was the Jamaican bobsled team. And I'm curious if you guys think, we live in sort of this age of viralness and there's an instant spotlight. But in the 80s, it wasn't necessarily that. But the Olympics are one of the few events that everyone watches.
Yeah.
Do you think Eddie's story, like if he was ski jumping today, would have as much heart, or which I think is like a compliment to him as a person, or do you think anybody can be Eddie now?
I wonder. I mean, I don't know. I mean, the thing about it then was that it took time for that story to reach around the world, and it sort of grew and built momentum, and it was the information was coming from the other side of the world, and it took longer to get back. And so I suppose it has more longevity in that way, that it's kind of more in the consciousness, because you've got to really seek it out, whether it's so it's not now so quick and you swipe it away and that's it, it's gone. It's a quick thing. It sort of hangs around, and things lingered for longer, And
it did catch the zeitgeist. I was in Australia. I remember we were all kind of transfixed by him, and in the closing ceremony, he's kind of mentioned by one Summerunch, the guy who runs the Olympics. He was on Johnny Carson, flew him down, and there's a great clip, if you want to see it, YouTube, of him on Johnny Carson with Burt Reynolds, and Burt Reynolds is in awe of this guy, Eddie Edwards, and there's this guy from Cheltenham in England on Johnny Carson. He's very funny, and it kind of caught this, because I think it was such an unusual thing. He was very much the everyman doing this crazy, crazy sport. It was sort of, this is before extreme sports existed, but ski jumping is basically an extreme sport where people die all the time, but it really did capture the attention at the time. I probably only would have been more today, I reckon.
One of the things I love is that I think the movie tells me that, or his whole story says, you don't have to win to be a winner. I think he's, it's a very earnest story, and it's nice to see somebody succeed at their dream, even though their dream is, it's they're reaching for the stars, but it's not necessarily everyone else is reaching for stars. It's not I want to be a gold medal Olympian. It's I want to be an Olympian. So we're curious if there's any sort of moments in your own lives that you feel like, hey, this was really personally important to me. Other people might not necessarily see it as the same level of achievement, but...
Oh, that's a good question.
I always wanted to get to the Google headquarters.
Yes!
Wait a minute! Woo! I suppose we all have those moments in our lives. Eddie, what defines Eddie is that he has this kind of unwavering self-belief, and that gets him to where he wants to go. And I think that's what's the interesting one of the many messages that this film has. But I think what's so strong about it is that it's have that bit of belief in yourself, and then see how far that gets you, because you will be beset with many doubters and your own self-doubt. But if you can, just take it that bit further, you will end up at Google headquarters. Woo! You know what I mean? No, that's part of what it is that can take you so far. And
I love what you said, actually. I've sort of been saying exactly the same thing, copying a friend of mine who saw the movie, that you don't have to win to be a winner. And I think kids often today, if you ask them, who their role models are, it's, Larry or Sergey, or it's Steve Jobs, or it's, LeBron James. It's these people, the uber achievers in life. And I'm like, well, that's great, but, very few people can achieve that level of perceived success, but that doesn't mean you're not a winner if you don't get there. What about the fireman, or what about the school teacher? What about that? And this is probably going to sound a bit like self-promotion in a way, but I do this, you ask him, what things in our life, and I was lucky enough to go on a trip with World Vision to Ethiopia, and I met a coffee farmer called Dukali, and cut a long story short, about 3 years later, we opened up two cafes in New York, and we sell espresso called Dukali's Dream. And every time I walk into this cafe, which is about the size of that coffee table there, and I just get a flat white, and I know that all the profits from that are sort of directly, and we buy beans from him directly and give him fair trade prices and all that. Somehow that makes me just feel fantastic. It's a small little cafe in a city filled with cafes, but it gives me a kind of feeling that is as great as anything I've done.
Yeah, follow that.
Yeah. That is a
Google headquarters.
Yeah. Always wanted to be at Google headquarters.
Great.
The reason I've been so quiet thus far is because this really is quite a moment for me.
You've heard there's some amazing restaurants here.
I've heard, yeah, exactly, yeah.
Is the vegan restaurant open tonight? That's what.
We can make it open today. We will open it today.
I don't know, really. Things that were important to me that didn't seem as important to everyone else. I don't know. I think, the big thing in my life was probably getting into drama school when I was about 19, but that was very important to my family as well. So that's a really lame answer, isn't it? I'm trying to think of anything more interesting than that. But yeah, that was the sort of big thing in my life that felt like a real kind of insurmountable challenge. And in fact, the first year I tried they didn't look at me twice, but second year I got in. So yes, there we go.
There you go. So I'd love to talk about, you guys had a great sort of on-screen chemistry, and it's a very sort of intimate film. You know, it's two characters, and it's kind of, first it's you versus the world, and then it's you two versus the world. What was the on-set experience like?
Awesome.
We don't
That's not the answer I was looking for.
we don't talk anymore.
It's amazing they're sitting next to each other.
Yeah.
Right?
Show friends.
Feeling very tense.
Dexter would start every day with the same saying. Go on, give it to him.
Let's make a movie.
Every morning we'd walk on set and Dexter would say that. And it would make us laugh and everyone would clap and we would get going. And this man is one of the funniest, most talented men I've ever worked with, and we just had a blast. I had a blast.
I did have a blast. Basically,
There was a pause. There was a pause there.
I basically made it my mission when I started this film. When you first meet Hugh, he's so approachable and lovely and kind. Intimidating.
Yeah.
Won't let you look him in the eye.
Yeah, blah, blah, blah.
No, but so friendly and lovely that I completely took advantage of this. So what I did was I made it my aim making this film to try and make Hugh Jackman laugh in every take possible. To the detriment of the film completely, and I don't care. So we'd start and do scenes, and then the camera would turn around on him, and I'd be in the middle of a scene, and I'd just sort of decide to pull a funny face, or the exaggerated Eddie face, I like to call it, which is something like this. And Hugh would immediately crack up, and it would
Every
ruin
time.
the take. And I loved it, every second of it. And
Give me one. The really. Go on.
really.
Here it is.
There's a really fun game you can play watching this movie. And it needs a name, actually. Maybe we'll call it
It's a drinking game.
it's a good drinking game. So we'll call it Hugh or Peary, and the game is that Hugh's character laughing, or is that just Hugh cracking up? And I think you all know the
It's
answer.
pretty easy to tell.
Yeah, you'd be quite drunk if you played the at the end of it.
So I have a few rapid fire questions for all of you. What sport do you think should be in the Olympics that isn't already?
Golf.
That was fast.
Wow, that was fast.
I actually can't think of a single sport at the moment.
Drone racing.
Okay. One fan.
Yeah, I'd like to see some seriously fast, manic drone racing.
There we go. Yeah, we could have our first Olympian in that, sitting right here.
Probably sitting in this room, that person who clapped.
Yeah.
She's got a drone at home.
Okay.
I can't even think of a sport. That's how little of a sportsman I am. I can't think of one sport.
That's okay.
That's not already in the Olympics. Pogo stick.
Video game.
Pogo stick.
Three-legged races.
So Eddie's mom has this adorable, sort of sweet wool jumper that says, I'm Eddie's mom. What would your wool jumper say?
I've got one.
What would my... Oh.
Says I play Eddie. I really have. Someone made it for me, and I love it.
That's great.
And they made one for my mum as well, that says I'm Eddie's mum. Oh. Gonna be single for a very long time.
Deal breaker. Nobody else has a jumper idea?
That's good. We can't...
Yeah, you can't.
All right.
Sometimes you've got to just
Just
bow out.
thanks, Hugh. Just let that one hang in the air.
What book or song, what would your theme song be?
In the film, in life?
In life.
Oh, okay.
She's a maniac.
Good one. Very good.
Again, very good. He wins.
He wins.
He wins.
Not even competing.
Competition, but he's won.
It is.
He's won.
It's a competition. It's like you sit here think it isn't. It is.
Actually, speaking of music, I do have to ask, the song at the end.
Yes.
You guys want to talk about
Well
that a
spotted.
little bit?
Yeah, Matthew Vaughn, the producer, and Dex. The soundtrack is fantastic if you like 80s music. If you hate 80s music, you'll hate the soundtrack. But it's really...
You won. He's lying.
No, it's really fantastic. And so he wanted to have a cool song for the ending, and so went out to a whole bunch of bands, and Gary Barlow and Orchestral Maneuvers in the Dark, OMD, came up with this song. They did write it together, right?
Yeah.
And then they were going to perform it. And because the real Eddie Edwards, as they do in England, if anyone gets any notoriety, he recorded a single.
Just in England, it happens here.
Does that happen here
Oh,
too?
yeah.
Really? But in England, it goes to number one, right? And This is the Country, was it Nellie the Elephant? That went to #1.
Yeah, probably. Yeah.
We have exquisite taste.
Yeah.
The floral.
So Eddie did one, so Taron sang the lead.
On the bandwagon as well.
No, that's not true. You're not on the bandwagon.
And I did the backing vocals for it, and we sang this song, which if you watch through to the credits, you can check it out.
Sort of an 80s pop song, isn't it? Called Thrill Me. Yeah,
We just felt it was a fun thing to do. It was and Taron and Hugh were very gracious and very keen, and Taron went in the studio and recorded his bit, and in London, and you were in Australia doing yours, and
because we weren't talking at the time.
That's right. Yeah, you couldn't have them in the same room. Couldn't have them on the same continent. No, it was that bad.
Can I tell a little story? I'm going to embarrass you now. I'm going to tell a little story because he'd laid down.
You got to anyway. So.
If you looked at me and said, "Don't," I'd really. Anyway, so. He'd already done it, and they sent it over. And I said, "This is fantastic." I was speaking to Matthew, and he said, "Yeah." Taron came in. Gary Barlow's there. Do you guys know Gary Barlow? He's very, very famous English. He was a performer. What was his band? It was
Take that.
Take that with Robbie Williams, right?
With Robbie Williams.
Robbie Williams.
Yeah. And now writes on his own. Anyway, so he knows what he's doing. And so Taron came in, and apparently he said, "Okay, if you want to go into the booth, you ready?" And Taron goes, "Yeah, do you want me to do it in like an 80s style or kind of?" And Gary's like, "80s style?"
Oh no, what was I?
And Gary's like, "Okay," like not knowing. He goes, "I'm just wondering if this guy can sing, let alone sing in an 80s style." And he said he went in there, and Matthew Vaughn said to Gary, he goes, "Gary, he's better than you." and it was phenomenal.
And Gary said, "Yeah, he is." I was there. It was amazing. It was amazing.
You two seem to enjoy singing, so Dexter, I'm going to ask you this. If you could direct them in a musical, what would it be?
Oh, I was just watching a little bit of Singing in the Rain which I love. But Singing in the Rain would be great. But then they started singing what you'd not Philadelphia Story.
Frank and Bing in it.
High Society. High Society. That would be their choice.
Yeah, I'd love to do.
I like Singing in the Rain too, though.
Yeah,
Except to put him in some.
I haven't got the feet for Singing in the Rain.
He knows.
He's roses. I'm roses. But roses.
Maybe I can find the feet. No, I'm not going to.
Roses. Come on, man.
Anyway, you do it.
Full on sing along in a
It's
second.
Friday. All I'm thinking about is that first vodka.
We've already had ours. That's why we're singing.
We have more there.
Is the Google bar still open, by the way?
Yes, it is.
Yes, it is.
We know what we're going after. If folks
the
want to
vegan
line up for
restaurant.
audience questions also, we'll take them a few in a second. Or stay exactly where you are, your choice. What do you hope audiences will take away from this film?
So I think we always felt like that we wanted to create something that was just uplifting and fun and uncynical and not kind of trying to be tricksy or dark or edgy in any way. It's just
No. Go ahead. You're right.
no.
Right.
Sorry, did I say something?
No. Not at all.
Just that we wanted it to be really, really uplifting and for people to leave the theatre with a spring in their step. And I hope that's how people feel. It's certainly the way I felt when I first watched it. Anyway.
You kind of reminded me of the Full Monty when I read it. You know, it's got that great English tone.
I get naked in it a lot.
Yeah. There is one nude scene. Well, you're not nude.
I am sort of nude.
Oh gosh, naked.
Oh gosh, naked.
Oh gosh, nude. Yeah.
Fine physical shape.
And it kind of sneaks up on you, the film, and people do really end up leaving with a smile on their face and happy. And again, what my friend said, which I'm a parent, and really is a great film to show kids or your kids. It's a great message for them, I think. You know.
I absolutely what the guy said. You know, we want people to come out feeling good and having a good experience and feeling like, hey, tomorrow maybe I'll tackle something that I've been putting off for a while. I don't know, that's a big thing. But also just to understand how dangerous this ski jumping is. What these guys do, and it's trying to capture that sense of danger and fear of someone at the top of a 90-metre ski jump who still then goes for it and still takes that on. There's lots of excitement in that, and there's many wonderful things to take away from the film. Mostly a ticket for your friend, I think. I'd like them to take away.
Hey guys, thanks for coming into Google today. I got a question for Taron.
I really thought he was going to sing.
He's got a question for me.
I can sing if you guys want. It wouldn't be too pretty. but-
Sorry, Taron.
So you were just talking about how it's one of the scariest sports in the Olympics, right? It's absolutely crazy. It's mind-blowing when you watch it on TV. It must be one of the most intense things that you could possibly do. So Taron, did you give it a try?
Ski jumping.
Yeah. Are you a
During
slopes
the next
guy?
Winter Olympics.
See you there?
I'll level with you. Before we started making this movie, I'd never been on a pair of skis in my life. So for me, learning to ski was enough of a challenge. And the moment an actor in a movie says, "Okay, I'm going to do my own ski jumping," the gods of insurance descend and smush you into the ground. So actually, I was totally fine with not doing any ski jumping. I don't know why. Hugh.
Yeah, ask
when
Hugh.
Hugh, when
Did you give it a
after
try?
Hugh first arrived, he was getting right, going, "Do you know what? I think I'm going to do it, man.
Go for it, mate.
I can do it." And then he got to the top of the jump and went, "There is no flipping way.
No way.
I'm going down that thing."
It is absolutely crazy. How does Tom Cruise get insurance for his movies? I have no idea.
Don't know.
I said to Dexter, Tom Cruise would do the jump. He would do it. He probably would.
Awesome. Nice guy.
That's a challenge, Tom.
That's a challenge, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, this is going on the internet. People will see it.
Hi, thanks for coming. So my favorite character in the movie is Janet, his mom, and I'm wondering, is she still alive? And how'd you get material for Joe to play her character?
Yes, Eddie's real mum is still around, yeah, and did in fact knit many jumpers with different slogans and for various members of the family. We play around with the facts a bit in the film because it's a story that we're telling, and but she did actually end up in Calgary as well. A newspaper flew Eddie's parents out there and surprised him, which I didn't really feel was. It was a tough thing for Eddie at that time because suddenly, you know, his mum and dad turned up and some girlfriend that he'd had, you know, and they tried to create this big drama. So I stayed away from that. But his mum and dad are still around and have seen the film with Eddie. That's
loved
that
it,
first
didn't
screening, yeah, and they all love it. But Jo is just a lovely
incredible
actress.
actress.
Yeah,
So
she's
good.
a fantastic actress.
She's
And
kind of I feel personally that Joe's kind of the sort of beating heart of the movie in some ways,
Yeah.
isn't she? She's
absolutely.
a lovely performance. It's my
But,
favourite character too.
Yeah.
Sorry, Hugh.
I think
I'm with you.
no, but I think the mum and dad are important because they're the heart, they're the home, you know, and that's important that we understand where Eddie comes from, and you know, and Dad's a bit of a tougher character, but
Yeah.
the same thing, it's just out of fear for his son, you know, he's trying to protect him in a different way, and Mum's trying to encourage him, and of course those two forces pull against each other, and but she's always been there from the beginning. She's a great character.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Speaking of tougher characters, Hugh, your character has a sort of shadow over his sort of career.
Yeah,
He's played by
Mr.
Christopher Walken.
Yeah.
What was that like, having him as your sort of?
We found out about 2 weeks into filming that my coach would be played by Christopher Walken, and we were just jumping around.
yeah.
And there's a moment I will never forget. Obviously, when he did the scene with us in the locker room, he just walked in so cool, so calm, and everyone went silent, right? Which is actually the way it's written in the script.
Yeah.
But he shot the commentating scene before that, and Taron and I had finished shooting, and we stuck around because we wanted to go and see him work. And I'll never forget standing there, Christopher Walken's sort of up there in this commentating booth, and we're sort of hidden so he can't see us at the booth. And Dexter's there, and we're watching the monitor, and Dex and all of us is like, and action. All right, cut. Fantastic. And he does a great Walken impression. But unfortunately, and because from the moment Christopher was cast, he was basically in a Christopher Walken impersonation all day.
All day,
the film.
we're going to roll them now, action. We're going to cut the movie.
But he started doing it to Christopher Walken without realising.
Chris, we got to do it again. You're great. I love you.
I love it.
But we're going again. You're an alligator.
For those, he has one line. It is 5 words. And
Yeah.
in the middle, it's 5-word line.
Yeah,
he
yeah.
puts a 15-second pause in the middle of a 5-word line. And it's brilliant.
Yeah.
No one else could pull that thing up. I mean, honestly. It's amazing.
It's a real joy.
Give us a little
I'll read the script 3 times, and then if I like it, I'll do it.
That's what he said.
If
He didn't say, I've read it twice.
I've read it twice. I got one more time. I'll I'll see how it goes. Hugh Jackman, I like him. He's good.
I don't think
Alligator.
there's a better endorsement for this film than what
No,
you just
there
said. So I think The Eagle is going to be in theaters, and thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for
so
having me.
much.
Thank you for coming, guys.
Thank you.
Great weekend.